Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF HaYomi, Bava Basra DAF Mem Ches. We are holding on Mem Zayin Amud Beis, 5 lines off the bottom of the Amud. Amar Rav Huna, says Rav Huna a Chiddush, told you who, let's say they hung him up, Vizavin, and forced him to sell a property. Rashbam says, Misha Talu Oisai. It's 7 lines from the bottom. Told you who Vizavin, Misha Talu Oisai. So they forced him, they tortured, they blackmailed him into selling something. They physically forced him, and he agreed, he accepted the money, and acknowledged. He conceded. He says, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Zvini, says the Rashbam, it's a valid sale, and you can't go back on it. And of course, the Gemara will have to explain how this works. So back to the Gemara. Amar Rav Huna told you Vizavin, if one was forced to sell an item, to sell a property or whatever, Zvini, the sale works. My time, you know why? Called the Mazbin Inish. Typically, or very often, when a person sells something, whether it's his car, it's a property that he has, he's not really interested. He's compelled by financial considerations to sell. Very often a person is not really interested in selling. He's forced to do so due to, circumstances. Ilav the honest, if not for being forced, lo have a mazbin, he wouldn't be doing this sale. And still, we don't find anywhere in the Torah that we differentiate between a person who is doing this happily or unhappily. Vafilu hoche, and still, zvine, the sale is valid. Likewise, in this case, we don't differentiate. The fact is, as the Rashbam says, 2 lines from the bottom, Afagav the honest, moicher, even if the moicher, the seller, was forced into the deal, the customer has his item. You know why? Hoyel v'kibel domim, says the Rashbam, since he got his money, he got paid. Right? He wasn't forced to give it away, he was forced to sell it. Afagav the loigomer makne, even though he's not doing it 100% willingly, the fact is, he got compensated, he sold it, it's done. Asks the Gemara, hold it, how can you compare the 2 situations? I don't really want to sell it, but if I have to sell, I'll sell. But if you force me to do so, it's a totally different story. Right? Vidilma, perhaps, Shani, it's very different. Oinsa denafshei, an oines situation, a difficult financial situation which compels a person to sell his car, to sell his item, his house, his property. Ultimately, it's his decision. He decided to go ahead with it, it works. As opposed to our case, when he's being forced externally to do so. He doesn't really want to do so. He doesn't need to sell it. So perhaps it's different. Perhaps he's not doing it wholeheartedly. And therefore it's invalid. So how do you know to compare? How do you know to sanction this type of sale? Ella says, the Gemara, I'll give you a different reason. A different source. That even a mechira ba'onis, a forced sale, ultimately works. Ella midasanya, based on a brayso, which is based on a pasuk in the beginning of Parshas Vayikra. The pasuk says like this. I'll just read it from the side. I have the pasuk on the margin. Im oila karbonai min habakar zachar tamim yakrivenu. He promised to bring a carbon. He should bring it. Yakrivenu. Okay, he should offer it. And then the pasuk continues. El pesach oyel moed yakriv oisai. This seems to be a repetition. It already says yakrivenu. Why repeat yakriv oisai? Right? L'rtzoi noi lifnei Hashem. We learn something from here. Suppose a person promised a carbon to the Beis Hamikdash, and he's not bringing it. He's not cooperating. From the words Yaakov Oisei, we learn that the Bezdin will get involved and compel him, force him to bring the carbon, right? In fulfillment of his pledge. Malamed Shekoif and Oisei, we force him. But that doesn't really work. Yachil Baal Karcha, do you mean that ultimately he's going to be bringing the carbon against his will. That doesn't work. The next word in the pasuk tells us that it has to be willingly. It has to be with his whole heart. We need his ratzain, his willingness. How could you force a person to do something against his will and still be considered l'ritzainai? Okay, so how do you work this out? How do you balance the equation? How do you get him to do something that he doesn't really want to do, and have him do it willingly? Okay, listen to this. We force him. We force him until he declares, yes, I'm doing this willingly. Interesting, I remember as a kid, I was listening to a shir by Rabbi Ginsburg Shlita in Mir Yeshiva in Flatbush, Brooklyn. And he was saying something on the parsha, something to do with forcing him until he agrees, until he does it willingly. And I asked him after the shir, so if you forced him, then he's not doing it willingly. So he pulled out the Rambam. Listen to this. The Rambam says that in situations such as this, like the case of the carbon, or like the case of a man who's meant to be giving a get to his wife and refuses to give the get, Rambam says that really, truly, deep inside, his neshama, a yid has a neshama, which wants to do the correct thing, wants to do the right thing. But he has a battle raging. He has to battle away his Yetzer Hara, who's trying to cover up that ratzon, trying to block the goodwill from expressing itself. So that's what Bezdin is going to do. We hit him, we force him to chase away the blockages, to open up the clogs in the system. And now, once the Yetzer Hara is out of the way, we beat the Yetzer Hara, we don't beat the Yetzer Tov. Once the Yetzer Hara is beaten, now the Yetzer Tov just shines through naturally. And when he gets up and he says, Roitza ani, the real me, the goodness within me, the essence of Tov, the Yetzer Tov wants to do it. That's a true expression of himself. That's his true ratzon, his true want, his true will. So ultimately, you've reached his true ratzon. Okay, so what do we see? That even though he was forced, it's called ritzaina. It's called his will. The same, says the Rashbam, in the case of a sale, a forced sale. Fact is, you paid him for it. The fact is, he's doing it. True, the circumstances are a bit difficult and a bit forced on him, but Gamar B'liba L'Haknes. We assume that this is his true ratzon. Well, now says the Gemara, hold it. We have an obvious distinction. V'dil Mashan, based on this Rambam, right? V'dil Mashani Hasam Denichale Dehavali Kapara. Perhaps in the case of the carbon, it's so different because he needs the kapara, he needs the carbon. And when he says Roitza Ani, says the Rashbam, V'adai believe Shalem Kamar. Of course, he means it with his full heart. Like we explained, it's his true essence, his true ratzon. But when he was forced into selling his house, he has no interest in doing so, even when he's forced. Ve'elam Yisef. So let's proceed to the next part of that halacha. Just as this method works by a carbon, the same with a husband who's refusing to give a halachically mandated get. And we force him until he says, yep, I'm doing it willingly. Here it's not a carbon, right? Which would perhaps be the reason for the previous halacha. Here it's a get. Apparently, when you force him and he says okay, it's okay, it's willingly, it's beratzon, which is required because the Torah says v'nasan lo sefer krisis. He has to willingly give her the get. He can't just mechanically give it. He has to be doing it willingly. Well, once again, v'dil mashani hasan, perhaps the reason why it works by the forced get is because deep down he wants to do the right thing. The mitzvah l'shmoya divrei chachamim, because it's a mitzvah to adhere to the chachamim's instructions, and they instructed him to give a get because he's not being a responsible husband, etc., whatever it is, right? How could you compare to a case where one was blackmailed into selling his property? So what's the reason why Rav Huna says Tol Yuhu v'Zavin is Vinei Zvini? A forced sale works. Elo, says the Gemara, Svarahu. It's just logic. It's just a svara. Agav Einse Gomer Makna. True, he didn't really want to do this, but the fact is, he has Yisurim, he has hardship that's being imposed on him, whether it's physical torture or whatever it is. And the fact is, he's also getting paid for it. Says the Rashbam, the combination of both things. Says the Rashbam, Yisurim and also Matan Mois, who's paid for the field. So he's not really losing anything. He's just getting them off his back and he's getting paid for his property. So that constitutes a valid sale. Moisiv Rabbi Yehuda. Comes Rabbi Yehuda with a kasha on this halacha. Get hamu'usa. A husband who was forced into giving a get. Be Yisrael, if it was done through the Yisrael Bezdin, kasha, it's perfectly fine. And the Rashbam again stresses, we're speaking about certain cases. You can't just force any husband. Cases where a get is required. So it works. And again, we're speaking that he was forced, but he acknowledges, at the end of the day, he says, Roitzani, so it's fine. Uba akam, puzzle. But if it was executed by a non-Jewish court, the get is not valid. But uba akam, if the goyim want to have a valid get, what are they meant to do? They can strike him and tell him, Asay mashi Yisrael oimerlach. Carry out what the Yiddish Bezdin are instructing you to do. So they're just assisting the Yiddish court in carrying out their judgment, and that works, right? Because we have mitzvah l'shmoy divrei chachamim, okay? But in the middle case, where the non-Jewish court is just initiating this process, we don't have the concept of mitzvah l'shmoy divrei chachamim, since the chachamim are uninvolved. And what do we see? Even though there was an oines, they're forcing him, they're striking him, they're pushing him to do it. We don't say, well, since it's an oines, he'll just do it willingly because, look, he has nothing to lose, and right? We don't say that. So it's a kasha on the halacha that we just said in the name of Rav Huna. That even in absence of the kapara aspect or the mitzvah l'shmaya divrei chachamim element, if a person was forced into a transaction, it works. If, in fact, he has nothing to lose. Right? So that's the kasha. V'amai. So why doesn't it work? Hasam nami, there as well. Even if the akum are forcing him, nema, why don't we say agav oin say gamam regarish? Since he was forced, ultimately, he's going to do it willingly. And the Rashbam points out, again, he has nothing to lose. His wife's not with him anymore. I mean, right? Game's over. So why don't you just give the get? Why doesn't it work? Answers the Gemara, you're right. Technically, it should be a valid get, but the Chachamim struck it down. Ha'itmar law. Haven't we learned an explanation on this halacha? Amar of Meshar Shia. Devar Torah, you should know that min ha-Torah, afilu ba'akam kasha, even a get, a forced get, issued through the Goyish court, would be kasha. Umatam amru ba'akam pasa. Why do we say that if the Goyim forced him to give a get, it doesn't work? Technically, it works. And min ha-Torah, it still works. But midrabanan, we treat it as an invalid get and require another get. You know why? To avoid a situation, to prevent a situation where any wife who's unhappy with her husband will go ahead, she'll go and cooperate with the goyim, pay them off, so that they get her out of her husband. Right? She'll pay him off, she'll whatever. So we don't want that to happen. We don't want to set the stage for this type of situation. So we just cancel any sort of get. We invalidate any get which was generated through this type of method. But technically speaking, you're right, it would work. And the same with the case of Rav Huna, Tol Yuhu v'zavin zvine zvine. Moisiv Rav Hamnuna has a kasha on this halach of Rav Huna, who says that a forced sale is valid. We have a Mishnah back in Maseches Gittin. A sekrikin were these people who were violent robbers who would steal Jewish lands. Lokach misekrikin. Now a customer approached a sekrikin who had rob Jewish property and offer to buy it from him. And then he goes back to the real Jewish owner and he pays him for the field. Okay, so he wants to be ehrlich, wants to be honest. First he bought it from the guy, but then he went back to the real owner. He says, you know what, I have it already. I got it from the guy. You have nothing to lose. Let me just, let's just formalize the sale. Let me pay you for it and let me keep it. Mikhay batal. Does it work? No, it doesn't work. Why? Because the Israel owner is not really a willing partner. He was forced off the properties. Of course he's cooperating. And now out of fear for this Sikrik, unless they come back and attack him again, he's sort of cooperating and going along with it. And the question is, okay, but the fact is he is cooperating. Let's assume that because of the Oines situation, whatever it is, fear, intimidation, he's going along with it. He's selling the property. It should work, according to Rav Huna. Answers the Gemara, you're right. If, in fact, he's getting paid for the property, it would be considered a sale, but we're speaking that it never happened. He never got paid for it. We have learned on this halacha. Amar Rav, lo yishanu. When do we say it's not a valid sale? That's when the Israel owner acknowledged to the new buyer, look, go ahead, and he allowed him to go be kain of the field, go take possession. But if he actually issued him a document, a sale document, indicating that he actually sold it to him, and we assume that means that he also got paid for it. So in this case, since he's getting paid, he has basically nothing to lose and it works. And that corresponds with Rav Huna's halacha. Even a forced sale works provided you got paid for it. But says the Gemara L'Shmuel, Da'amar Af B'Shtar Lama Lo'Kana. Michael Amemar. But according to Shmuel, who says even if he issued a document, it doesn't work. So how does that reconcile with Rav Huna? Well, Maida Shmuel, even Shmuel would agree, Hechad Yav Zuzi. The reason why Shmuel does not reckon with a document is because maybe he just issued him a document without really getting paid. He was intimidated into doing so, but if we know that he got paid for it, we have Adam that saw him taking payment for the field. If you paid him for it, of course, it works. And again, that corresponds with our halacha of Rav Huna. Asks the Gemara, but we have another opinion. Ula Rav Baby, the Messiah, but Mishmei Rav Nachman. But Rav Baby, who in yesterday's DAF concluded the halacha there in the name of Rav Nachman, that a known thief, a gazlan, who's in possession of a field, doesn't say much about ownership. And he has to give up the property. But he can get his money back. The money that he paid for it, right? Karka Enlo, he has to lose the property, but Mois Yeshla, he can get back his money. So, pretty clearly, we're speaking about a case of a gazlan who paid. He paid for the property. It's a forced sale, but he paid for it. And still we say it doesn't work. Michael Amemar, how does that work? With today's halacha of Rav Huna, that even a forced sale works. You're right, says the Gemara, our baby was just saying over a halacha in the name of another chacham. It wasn't like a mishnah or a brisa, which would pin Rav Huna down. It was a statement, a halacha in the name of a chacham, which Rav Huna can disagree with. He doesn't agree with the member. So at this point we have a machlekes. Tal Yuhu v'Zavan, a person who was hung up, a person who was forced into selling a property. Rav Huna says it works. Fact is, you're getting paid for it. The fact is, you said it's okay, and we assume it's a done deal. Whereas Rav Baby disagrees. Amar Rava Hilchazas, what's the halacha? It depends. Tal Yuhu v'Zavan zvini zvini. A fellow who was forced into selling and he got paid for that, it's considered a valid deal. But for Le'amar, and that's only true, Ela B'Sadeh Stam. They forced him to sell one of his properties. They didn't, force him to sell a specific one. They didn't identify this field, you sell me this field. General request, right? Sell us something. And he chose. He picked out this property. So Rashbam says, Kivan de Medaitoi Bireir Rosh B'Hen we assume since he chose, he probably picked the worst one. And in that case we say he meant to sell it, wholeheartedly, he gave it away. But if it was forced, to sell a specific field, then it doesn't work. Even when it was a specific field, we only say that it does not work. That's only when the owner never really counted the money. He just took the money, threw into his drawer. Apparently, he wasn't happy about the deal. But if he was observed counting his money, then it changes the whole deal, because apparently he was pleased with this, somewhat pleased with the deal. He's counting the money. He's making sure he got paid properly. Apparently, he's going along with it. And also, we only say that when it was a specific request, Sadazu, and he didn't count his money, right? We say it doesn't work. That's only when he had no way out. He could not push them off, right? He was totally forced into this. Then we say it doesn't work. But if he had some sort of tactic that he could have used to delay the matter, right? He could have said, look, come back tomorrow, I'm not ready now, right? And he chose not to use that strategy. So then we don't say that it's not a good deal. Meaning, then we say it is a good deal because apparently he cooperated and he was okay with it. But the conclusion of the Gemara is bekulu in all these situations, even when he was forced to sell a specific field, etc. The havu zvine, the sale works. Right? Even if he was forced on a specific property. How do we know this? Because the classic case of an isha who was forced into getting engaged, right? So that's certainly a very specific type of situation, very specific product, so to speak. It's like sadazu, right? Because he wants specifically this isha. V'amar Amemar tells us that it works. Tol yuha v'kadosh. Again, tol yuha means hung up. It's an expression. She was forced into accepting his engagement money, v'kadosh. Kedushin, it works. Why? Because the fact is she got his money and and she went along with it. So we see that in all situations, even when it was a very specific deal, it works. Ma Baravashi Omar Beisha Vadahi. Ma Baravashi takes issue with this Kiddushin situation. He says, by a specific sale, okay, but I can accept that, but not by Kiddushin. That's going a bit too far. Force an Isha to getting married with you, it doesn't work. Beisha Vadai Kiddushin Loihavu. Certainly by the Isha, a forced Kiddushin doesn't work. You know why? It's totally inappropriate. Who also Shloika Hagen? He proceeded inappropriately by forcing her to get engaged with him. Therefore, also Chacham correspondingly undid his Kiddushin process. Vafki'inu Rabbanon the Kiddushin. They canceled his whole Kiddushin. Okay, so it's totally null and void. Now, how does this work? The Rashbam learns that's because when a person approaches an Isha with Kiddushin, what does he say? Hariyat Mekudeshesli, I'm hereby executing Kiddushin, right? And he ends with the words Kedas, as per the laws of Moshe v'Yisrael, that Moshe Rabbeinu handed over and instructed Klal Yisrael to abide with. So he's basically toila his Kiddushin. He's depending his Kiddushin on the laws of Moshe Rabbeinu and the laws of the Chachamim throughout the Deiros, and the Chachamim don't allow this Kiddushin to proceed. So since this Kiddushin was conditional upon the consent of the Chachamim, if they invalidate it, then it's invalid. Taisus learns a bit differently. It's unrelated to the fact that a person makes that statement. Rather, he says that the Chachamim have a koyach. A quote of Taisus, he says, Yesh koyach biyad Chachamim lakar davar min haTorah. The Torah gives the Chachamim the ability, the power to uproot a procedure as they see, as per necessity, as per the benefit of the general benefit of the broader community. Okay, so that's how it works. Kiddushin is gone. Amalei Ravina l'Ravashi. So Ravina asked Ravashi, I understand how it's going to work if you gave her money, if you gave her something of value, which is one of the three ways to be Mekadesh and Isha, Kesef, right? That's the Kesef, you pay her. Shtar, you give her a document, or Bia, being with her physically. So, Teinach the Kaddish B'Kaspa. I fully understand how we could invalidate the money that he gave her. Instead of it being a gift, we turn it into Hefker. Chachamim sort of expropriate that ring, so to speak, and it's no longer his. It was no longer his retroactively, and or the shtar was no longer his, so he didn't really give her anything. But Kaddish, Bia, what about Bia, which is a physical interaction? How could you invalidate that? Amalek, he says, yeah, you can do that as well. Instead of considering it part of a Kedushin process, we consider it otherwise. Amalek, Shavyul, Rabban Bilasa, Bilas Nus, Chacham considered his interaction like an invalid interaction. Okay, so let's just summarize this piece of Gemara before we continue. Tolu v'zavin, a person was forced into a sale. Does it work? According to Rabbi Baby, no. According to Rav Huna, yeah. According to Rava, it works, provided he wasn't pinned on a certain property. He was sadeh stam. And even if he was pinned on a certain property, if we saw him counting his money, that changes the equation. Or if he had a way to get out of it, and he didn't. So the conclusion is, in all cases, it works even by Kedushin. Rav Ashi says, Kedushin, we say that the Chachamim invalidate the process. Continues the Gemara. Tabi was a fellow, a violent fellow. Gavra al-Mahabi, says the Rashbam. Tala, so he forced Papi, a fellow, poor guy, Papi, he hung him up on a tree, a kinara, on this certain tree called a kinara, to sell his field. V'zavin, and in fact, Papi just went along, cooperated, and sold the field to Tabi. Now, one of the witnesses on this shtar happened to be a big Talmud Chacham, an Amoira, by the name of Rabba Bar Chana. Could you imagine, even in the days of the Amoraim, they behaved this way? Okay, so again, Tali forced Papi by hanging him up on the Kinara, V'zavin, and he sold the field. Chasam Rabba Bar Chana, Amoida, Va'a Ashkalta. Now, Papi was no fool. He anticipated this event, so he went ahead and approached Rabba Bar Chana with another aid ahead of time, and he made a moidah. You recall we had a moidah a couple of weeks ago, which means that basically you make a declaration ahead of time. I'm being forced into this deal. It's a sort of disclaimer, okay? And they put it down on a document, they sign it. I'm about to be forced into doing such and such. I want to invalidate it ahead of time. Now, interestingly, ironically, Rabba Bar Chana, the same aid, signed on both documents, on yesterday's Maidah and on today's forced sale document. On Maidah v'ashkalta. Ashkalta is the taking, meaning the shtar, which was formulated upon the sale, right? So it's the sale document. Amar Rav Huna, man dechasim Maidah shaber chasim. The one who signed on the Moidah, that's a fine signature, meaning that works. Uman, the Chasim, Ashkalta, Shaber Chasim. And likewise, by signing on the Shtar Mecher, it also works. Asks the Gemara, how could you have both? How could you have it both ways? I mean, it's one or the other, right? Manav Shach, either way. If the Moidah is effective, like Ashkalta, then the sale document is ineffective, because it's preempting it, right? The ashkalta, and if the ashkalta is effective, the Moidah is not effective. How could you have both at the same time? He meant to say like this. It's exactly what Rav Huna meant to say. Ilav Moidah, if not, theoretically, if not for the Moidah, man, the chasim ashkalta, shaper chasim, then the shtar mecher would be valid, and the signatures would be valid. Why? Rav Huna Tamei. Oh, it's Rav Huna speaking. And he just told us a minute ago, the Amar Rav Huna told you v'zavin, zvini, even a forced sale works. Asks the Gemara, hold it, but how can one and the same person sign on both things? Here he's saying it's a valid sale, and there he's signing that it's not a valid sale. He's sort of contradicting himself. Suppose we have a shtar. This time it's a shtar halva, right? A loan document. And the Edom get up and say, look, yeah, we signed this document, but it was done in advance of a possible loan. He asked us to pay the shtar, right? What happened was that the borrower trusted the lender. He gave him the shtar ahead of time, and He trusted him that he won't use it until he lends him the money, okay? Right? And now the Eidim have to come and back that up and say, well, yeah, this was an amana. Amana is lashon amuna, trust. So yeah, we signed it. It's valid. It's not forged, but it was done. It was handed to him without, prior to the loan taking place. So it doesn't really reflect a true loan. Ein amana, we can't believe them. We can't trust them because the fact is they're here on the star. They can't undo their signatories. They can't undo their testimony. Rashbam says, right? The classic halacha, kivan shehigid, once the Eidim testify, shuv einei chayzer magid. You can't go back on it. You can't retract. Okay, that's one halacha. Maida hayu dvareinu. Likewise, suppose it's a sale document, shtar mechira, and the Eidim on that shtar come and tell us, they advise us to the fact that it was really a forced thing. There was a maida, a disclaimer issued prior to the shtar mechira. And they want to invalidate the content of that shtar. We can't believe them. So how can we trust Rabbi Barachana? On the one hand, he's telling us there was a shtar mechira, and then he's saying there was a maida which preceded it. Wow, says the Gemara, how could you compare the two stories? Hanamila al peh. Rav Nachman's halacha. The Eidim can't go back on their word. That's when they were trying to get up today and verbally contradict the written word. The loyasi al peh, the verbal words, can't come along and undo the written words. Umar l'shtar, and undo an official document. You can't do that. Aval b'shtara, but in our case of Rabbi Barachana, who's just trying to help Papi out, he double signed. He signed on one shtar yesterday, and today on another shtar. Sure, that works. Asi shtora, so yesterday's document, yesterday's moidah disclaimer can certainly come and undo and preempt today's document. Umar al-shtora, and destroy today's document. Of course that works. Okay, so again, let's summarize. We have Rav Huna who says, Talyu v'zav and zvini zvini, went through all the different details, and we ended with the story of Tabi, who forced Papi into a sale, but he outsmarted him by issuing a moidah which preceded the forced sale, and it rendered it invalid. All the best to you, and atzlach.